Good morning and welcome to Sports Shorts Daily. I'm Tommy Krysan. Glad to be here. Glad to have you there on a Wednesday morning. Raining in the greater Baton Rouge area, but it'll be a rain for a couple of more days, they say. But we got a hot show for you. We got RP3, Raymond Parks, pinch hitting for Ronnie Rance. We'll get to him in just a minute. I can tell you that on this Wednesday, as always, I'm at Tremonti's Meat and Seafood, where today the lunch special is hamburger and fries for $6.99. Hamburger and fries for $6.99. You can't beat that. At Tremonti's Meat and Seafood right here in Baton Rouge. Got boiled crabs, boiled shrimp, all your lunch, your catering, your wine, your liquor, and much, much more. Tremonti's Meat and Seafood in Baton Rouge. As always, we are presented by the LeBears Casino and Hotel in Baton Rouge, the sports book where we'll be for radio Saturday. You can get your bets placed at the sports book. And don't forget the Edge Lounge. Back left corner of the casino floor, live entertainment Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The LeBears Casino and Hotel, always presenting Sports Shorts Daily and Sports Shorts Radio. Today on the program, as I mentioned, RP3, Raymond Parks, pinch hitting for Ronnie Rance. Raymond, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, brother. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, we appreciate you pinch hitting for Ronnie. I don't know where he's at. He's out of the country somewhere. But we can handle all that. Raymond, before we get going into a variety of topics, tell everybody about your radio show and how they can listen.
Yeah, RP3 and Mesh. It's 11 to 1 weekdays here on ESPN 103.7 Lafayette and 104.1 Lake Charles. If you live in those areas, you can catch us from the Mississippi River all the way to the border with Texas, depending on where you're at there across Interstate 10. But if you're not in those areas, you can also listen to us on our free mobile app. Just search ESPN Southwest Louisiana.
There you go. We'll tell you more about that in a little bit. Raymond, let's start off by talking college football. It's here. You know, in July is all the conference media days and stories. And then, of course, Ronnie and I kid all the time for the last 4 or 5 weeks. You have all these columns about coaches on the hot seat and who's got the best quarterback room, who's got the best running back. You know, we got conference realignment, we got NIL, we got transfer portal, we got 12 teams that'll be in a playoff a couple of months down the road. College football is here, and what's got your attention the most in the world of college football?
There's a couple of things. I want to see how these new conferences play out, right? Because we have a now revamped Big Ten, SEC, and Big 12, right? Now, the Pac-12 doesn't exist. I credit the two teams left that decided to have a media day session in Vegas. They found a banquet room. But it comes down to those three, right? And watching the ACC, and it feels like to me that we're getting to a point where they're going to dissolve or they're going to get poached. And I think the Big 12 is going to be the one that's going to lead the way on that. Like, it's crazy to think as many times as we've ridden the obituary, Tommy, for the Big 12 conference, they've seemingly always found a way. And you would think, well, you lose Texas and Oklahoma, you have no chance. But you've heard the rumblings. They are aggressively trying to go after Clemson and Florida State and Miami and trying to go get Notre Dame to come to their so every time we think realignment and the expansion of these conferences is, you know, settled down a little bit, it really hasn't. We know this. Like we've been tricked too many times to know. So I'm interested to see how Oregon does in the Big Ten, how Oregon's going to do when they have to play Penn State or Ohio State or Michigan, because that's a different brand of football than what the Pac-12 is accustomed to, right? SEC, Texas, Oklahoma. You know, I was at SEC Media Days in Dallas. The notion that the pendulum swings both ways on this, right? So you listen to OU and UT fans, and they say, oh, it's just the SEC. It's not a big deal. We're going to come in. You know, we've been playing in the Big 12. We won all these championships and, you know, so forth and so forth. It's not going to be a big deal. And then you go on the other side of the spectrum, and your diehard SEC fan goes, well, this is the SEC. They're not going to be able to transition. And I always point this out. They're not adding the Vanderbilt of the Big 12, right? They're adding Texas and Oklahoma. Like, two of the biggest brands of all time in college football, Heisman winners, national championships, All-Americans, the whole 9 yards. So they're adding two great programs to the mix. and I always point this out to people too. Remember, Mizzou got added to the SEC, and they won the SEC East back-to-back years, like right off the bat.
Yeah.
Texas A&M, they didn't win their division. They didn't win the conference, but Johnny Manziel walked into Tuscaloosa and won the Heisman, right? So this notion that Sark, who leads Texas, who, by the way, went to the Nick Saban coaching rehab facility in Tuscaloosa a few times to get his career back on track, just like Lane Kiffin did and others. Sark's a good coach, right? He's a good recruiter. Texas has a lot of money behind them. You got recruits popping up on visits with Lamborghinis parked outside the football facility. Like, Texas has got Texas money. Like, it's a, you know, so I think they're going to make the transition. I think Texas will make the transition quicker than, say, Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's schedule is brutal right off the bat. But I think Oklahoma will be one of those teams that will be middle of the pack, possibly fringe college football playoff team in a couple of years. I think Texas is probably that right now. But that's what it is. It's like that's what the sport's been dominated by. And we can't help it. As much as I hate talking about realignment, as much as I hate talking about the one day where it feels like there's going to be about 50 to 60 football programs that are just going to leave the NCAA altogether because they want to, because they can create their own super league, which I think is going to happen within 10 years. It's what's happening. Like, there's constant recruiting, there's constant realignment going on. It never stops. And now we get these mega conferences this year, the three big ones. Is the ACC even going to survive? Are they going to have more schools try to sue their way out of being in the conference? Oh, by the way, we have the 12-team playoff this year. Like, it's fascinating to me. This year is one of the more fascinating years for me as a guy that is a former newspaper guy and now a talk show radio guy covering college football as long as I have for 2 decades. This is one of the most fascinating years with the conferences being expanded and the expanded playoff, just to see how it kind of all works. Because not everyone's going to get what they want, Tommy. It's not, not everyone's going to get what they want here. And just, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, well, and there's always a ton of storylines in college football nationwide, big schools, little schools, the whole bit. It's like that times 5 for this year with all the conference realignment, the portal, the NIL money, and, coaches that have moved on and changed. And I mean, it's just not going to stop. Now, back to what you were talking about, Oklahoma and Texas coming to SEC. You're right. I like your thought that, hey, this is not Vanderbilt or the Big 12 coming in who's absolutely got no chance to win the championship. Okay, these are teams that Texas more than Oklahoma, but they have a chance to make a lot of noise in the SEC. And I keep saying this, but there's no more East and West. People have to remember it's 16 teams stacked in there. That's going to be a factor, at the end of the day as well. And, I think Texas is going to do fine. I don't expect him to, be a doormat by no stretch. I just don't know how they'll respond to, and I don't have their schedule in front of me, but that grind of the SEC that all coaches talk about. All, Missouri coach, they're on the trending upwards. You just talk about it. You don't, unless you play Vanderbilt and maybe Mississippi State, you don't really have that quote unquote, paycheck game. No. I mean, it's just going to be, and then they're going to go into some hostile environments that may be a little crazier than some of the environments they went into before. But it's going to be, a lead story. But people have to remember, hey, the Big 12, the Big 10, I'm like you. I don't think the ACC survives. I mean, I think they're going to be like the Pac-12 within, I think, less than 10 years. I think more like 5 years that they'll be gone. And I think I also agree with you. There'll be like a super power conference of 36 or 48 teams that'll go off on their own, kind of like the old CFA back in the 90s. That didn't work, but that was the test pilot, So I think that's going to happen too, because it's all about the money. Follow the money, and you'll have most of the answers.
It's all about television money, right? It's all about the television revenue and how much they can charge the networks to broadcast the games. And that's what it boils down to. And I make the joke all the time on the radio, Tommy. I go, hey, did you notice in the BCS era and now in the college football playoff era, you notice the NCAA logo is not on that trophy? You notice that? You look at the other sports when they hold up the championship trophy, it's got the NCAA on there, right?
Right.
College football has been planting that seed for a long time. It's been building up for a long time. To your point about making the transition, you're correct, right? You don't have a Kansas on the schedule, even though Kansas has been okay the last couple of years, right? But you don't have those teams on the schedule. An off game, an off week for you if you're Texas or Oklahoma is having to face Kentucky, who's a pretty good program, right? Like they have a pretty good coach, right? Or Mizzou. Inside the SEC, though, like I look at it, and I talked about this on Radio Row last week, was I think 110% that Georgia is going to want to just demolish everyone they face. Like, I think you're going to see a very determined, maybe possibly angry Bulldog team this year. I really do. Like, they feel like they let one get away from them last year, losing in Atlanta to Saban in Alabama, where they could have had a chance to go win 3 in a row. And they let it, they lost that game and they lost that opportunity. I think Georgia's the cream, right? That they're the top. And then I think you got Texas, Ole Miss, especially with that schedule. And credit Lane, he's been building the Rebels to this point, right? You could tell he's been putting in the work. They really addressed defensive line in the portal. They got a lot of offensive firepower coming back. I like Ole Miss a lot. But I could see all of those teams having at least one loss and some of them having 2 and still making the playoff. Like, I see a scenario where we have 4 teams from the SEC making the college football playoff this year. I think it's Georgia. I think it's Texas. I think it's Ole Miss. And then I think you have a group, LSU. Okay. They're there if they can figure out the defense. I think LSU's there. I think Mizzou's there. Can Mizzou follow up that great breakout year last year under Drinkowitz with all that offensive firepower they got back, except for the running back? But they bring back a lot of other people, and they lose some guys on defense and defensive coaches, which LSU got. But I think it's like LSU and Mizzou and Bama. Everyone thinks Alabama's going to fall off the face of the cliff. Are they going to be dominant like they were under Saban? No. I still think they're going to be in the mix because I think DeBoer's a really good coach. Has he coached in the SEC before? No. Has he had to deal with that kind of schedule? No. But I still think they're probably going to be a factor. So I think you're going to have a jumbling of like 3 or 4 other teams, Tommy. They're going to try to be that 4th team to get in. But I think every team in the SEC has question marks. Every team has question marks. And I would not be surprised at all if there wasn't a single team that didn't have at least one loss, including Georgia, right? They have tough games on the road. Like, their toughest games are away from Athens. And including a sneaky game right off the bat, the neutral site game against Clemson in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta in the Chick-fil-A Bowl, the Chick-fil-A kickoff game, right? So I still think Georgia's the cream of the crop, but it's going to be interesting to see because every week's going to matter. Like, I don't care about what happens with, LSU taking on, Mizzou or that I don't think, or Tennessee, or all those games are going to matter. All of them are going to matter now because your top 2 teams are going to Atlanta because you don't have divisions anymore. So divisions don't matter.
We're visiting with RP3. You can catch RP3 in Mesh 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on ESPN Radio in Lafayette and in Lake Charles. RP3, Raymond, let's talk NFL. New Orleans Saints training out in California. Bad news on the offensive line the last couple of weeks. And, everybody in college football is optimistic. I'm not optimistic about the Saints. One of those coaching ranking columns that I read a few weeks ago had Dennis Allen at 32, and there's only 32 coaches in the league. I'm not expecting much out of the New Orleans Saints. Suspect offensive line. Derek Carr's not going to play 17 games. He's going to get hurt. I hope not. I don't like any athlete to get hurt at any sport at any level, but I just think it's going to be a very long season for the Saints.
I wish I could argue. I really do. I think bringing in Kubiak is a brilliant move. I think it's a smart move. And I've been very critical of DA on my show. And I think rightfully so. I will say this is that he has tried to change his staff to try to fix issues. So he understands that it can no longer be just stagnant. He's got to do something different. And bringing in Kubiak, who I think has less to do with the coaching tree that he has been known for with Shanahan, because he only spent 1 year with Kyle. but obviously he learned a lot from his daddy, Gary. So I think that's a smart move, right? And we spent so much time talking about the offensive line. I think the kid out of Oregon State is going to be really good. I really do. Is he going to have growing pains as a rookie left tackle? Yeah. But I think he's going to be fine. The big question mark, can Trevor Penning be a right tackle? I've said for the longest time, when I watch him practice, and I've watched him a couple of times in person in games, he has Kyle Turley tendencies, right? He's kind of built that way. He's got a kind of a mean streak in him. And I thought, why not move him out to right? And now he's going to have that opportunity. Like, this is his one shot to be a starter. Like, because left tackle didn't work out. Move him over to right. He doesn't have to worry about protecting the blind side of Carr. He can just play right tackle and be a bit of a mauler, right? So that's a big question mark. I'm not concerned about the wide receiving core. I don't think Olave is a true number one in the NFL. I think he's more like a number two, but they're going to roll him out as a number one because they don't have a choice. So, but you got pretty good wide receivers, right? You got Olave, you got Shaheed, who they gave that short little extension to. I'm a big ATP Perry guy. I think he's got the body, the size. And then one of those veterans that they brought in, they'll figure it out. They'll be a 4. So there's weapons on the offensive side. You got to fix the offensive line. Can Derek Carr, with a new offensive coordinator, new play caller, revamped offensive line, can he be better than just average? And I don't know that. Like, there's a lot of guys that put up big numbers, right, in the NFL, and he's had some good statistical years. Can he be elite? Because I think this team needs him to be elite for them to be a playoff team. I don't know if Derek Carr has the ability to be elite. I don't know if he's an elite guy. I personally don't think he is. I think he's right outside the top 15.
So one thing I've always said about Carr, in 5 passes, he'll throw 1 or 2 that looks like a big-time NFL pass, quarterback
Correct.
pass. Okay, but then he's got, he needs to have 3 or 4 look like, maybe 4 look like big-time NFL passes.
How many times did we see him last year, Tommy, with the receivers having to catch the ball on the ground? Right? It's simple thing. You're right. You'll see a pass and you'll go, wow, that looked good, right? You'll be like, ooh, that's a big-time throw. That's a big-time throw by Carr. And then there's other times where he's missing his wide receivers or he's throwing behind them. And we can fault the O-line. I get all that. But there's times where I wonder he struggles to throw to a spot, right? Like Drew was always great about, I can throw to a spot and I know my wide receiver is going to go get it. That ain't Derek. It's just not him.
No, it's not. And I mean, it's tough to watch sometimes, but one of the main qualities of a great quarterback is accuracy. And his accuracy level is not near, and I'm not trying to say he's great, he won Super Bowls, that's not going to happen, but the accuracy will catch up to you, especially with the talent on defense and the speed of these cornerbacks. It's a whole lot different. Hey, another thing in the NFL, Raymond, is 18-game schedule. We talk about college football. We got some changes in the next 5 years, give or take a little bit. There's going to be an 18-game schedule in the NFL. It's been around for a while, but it's gained a lot of steam in the last 2 weeks. It's
coming because there's more money, right? We talked about it earlier.
They did the math.
Burrow and what he said I found was interesting a few weeks back before he cut the hair and dyed it blonde and now looks like Eminem. He's locked in. He looks locked in to me. He looks like he's ready for a rap battle and going out there and playing football this year. But what he mentioned is interesting, is having the 2 buys, right? Doing something with the Pro Bowl, which I don't think they would do, inserting it into the season. But look, as much as the Players Association wants to balk at this, and they really don't have negotiation power. The NFLPA just doesn't. They don't. They try really hard, right? But it's not like the NBA and Major League Baseball. Those players' unions have power. The NFLPA really doesn't. So the owners are going to push this. They're going to want 18 games. And that's how it's going to work. You're going to insert 2 bye weeks. You and I are old enough to remember a time where the Super Bowl landed when it did. And I'm right here in my office. I have the Super Bowl tickets. I have replica tickets of like the first 25 Super Bowls. Got them framed and under glass. I'm telling you, we are going to be watching the Super Bowl in the month of March. It's going to happen because the NFL is going to expand its season. It's going to do everything that it wants to do. And the NFL doesn't care about anything else, Tommy. They don't. It used to be you don't deal with Christmas Day because that was the NBA's kind of like tipping off point, right? That's when everyone paid attention to the NBA. They don't care. NFL's like, we're putting games on Christmas Day now. Okay. Then they didn't want to interfere with Saturdays because of that kind of like, handshake agreement with college football. We're going to be respectful. Well, now they don't care about that either, right? They don't care about anybody else. The NFL is the Goliath. They're going to do whatever they want. I'm telling you, get ready to have the Super Bowl be held in March. And you're going like, well, that would interfere with March Madness and NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
They don't care. They don't care because they know they are king and their product will be watched above everyone else's.
Well,
what's going to happen?
It's like last year, Peacock paid $100 million to put on a playoff game. And everybody said, oh, that's crazy. Well, you know what? Now Amazon's going to do it. Apple TV, they're all going to do it because it's all about the money. And look, Raymond, I joke with young people because I'm an old guy. I'm old enough to remember when the NFL had 6 preseason games. 6. Okay. And when people hear that, they go, no, you made that up. I go, I'm not making that up. When I was a kid, there was 6 preseason games. Raymond, let's talk Olympics. They get underway in Paris later this week. Summer Olympics will be in Los Angeles in 2028. I know Ronnie Rance has said he's definitely going to go out there for some portion of the Olympics. He got it on his bucket list. He wants to go. Your thoughts on the Olympics in Paris, and then you're telling me you're going to head out to LA.
I'd love, look, the time difference is a killer, right? It is, as much as I want to be locked in, and we usually watch it every 4 years. My daughter's now 9. She's about to be 10. So there'll be some things that she'll want to watch, particularly the gymnastics and things like that. And maybe some of the track and field events. But probably women's basketball now because she has an interest, and we can thank Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark for that. And Kim Mulkey. I just, there's a lot of interesting storylines. Locally, Mondo Duplantis is from here. Lafayette High, went to LSU as well. He's going to not be representing Team USA. He's representing Sweden because his mom is from Sweden. But Richardson from LSU, she's going to have a great chance to get gold. Mondo, I have a chance. And then, the big sports, the women's basketball team. I'm intrigued by how they're going to fare. They're obviously better than everyone else, but we saw the young guns that aren't allowed to be on the Olympic team this time around, show them up a little bit in the All-Star game. And, so that's going to be a talking point, right? And if Team USA, the women's team, falters because they decided to be petty and not have Caitlin Clark or Angel on the team, that's going to be a huge talking point, right, for that. The men's basketball team, they've been playing with their food a little bit here, right? South Sudan, and you're like, they'll get it locked in and they'll figure it out. But for me, I'm old enough. Nothing's going to be like the '92 games were for men's basketball. Like the Dream Team was special, and we've tried to recreate it numerous times. But that first Dream Team was special, right? It changed the world. It changed basketball. It made basketball a primary sport in Spain and other countries because of the Barcelona games and the 1992 Dream Team. Look, I'll be locked in. I'll watch as much coverage as I can, but I'm really excited about having it stateside. In my lifetime, it's been here twice, the Summer Games, 84 in LA, 96 in Atlanta, and I've never been able to go. And my wife has already told me it is on our bucket list. She goes, we're going to some sort of Olympic competitions when it comes here. So, look, I'll be locked in like most of the country. We all get very patriotic every 4 years and we cheer on sports. We don't even have any idea that they existed. But, man, we're there. We're locked in. We're locked in. USA, right? So it's a tradition.
Yeah, I'll certainly be paying attention to the Olympics, and we'll talk a lot about it on upcoming Sports Shorts Daily and our Sports Shorts radio show on Saturdays. Raymond, final thing, Major League Baseball rolling along. Trade deadline coming up Tuesday late afternoon. Paul Skeens had a great outing, but suffered his first Major League loss. I still think he'll end up being the Rookie of the Year. Your thoughts on Paul Skeens and anything else in MLB?
It's been a fascinating season for Major League Baseball. I got to go to the All-Star game and got to see Skeens pitch and got to see him make Aaron Judge swing on that kind of a bad pitch, first pitch, and got him to ground out. Look, he's box office. He just is. And we haven't seen a guy, he reminds me how he's kind of taken the world by storm, kind of like what Fernando did and Dwight Gooden did in the 80s when they were like the young phenom pitchers, right? And they came up and they kind of just overtook the sport. And look, Major League Baseball needs more stars, and Skeens is a star. Humble guy, driven guy. But just to think, Tommy, he also batted when he was at Air Force. And the LSU staff and fall ball goes, we just want you to be a pitcher. Think about that. If they don't make that decision and just have him just be a primary pitcher and nothing else, they don't win the national title. He's not the number 1 overall pick, and he doesn't take Major League Baseball by storm, because he's even talked about how having the rest in between and not having to worry about swinging a bat, taking BP, and doing all that other stuff has made him a better pitcher. And now all of a sudden he's blossoming in front of us. So Skeens has been a big storyline, and it's been a weird year. We talk about the deadline, you bring it up, and we carry the Houston Astros on our stations. We're an affiliate for them. And, they catch up. They were 10 games back of Seattle. They take 2 or 3 in Seattle, right? And then they go to Oakland and they've lost the first 2 games, right? Because it's baseball. It's baseball, right? It's baseball. And that's what makes it such a beautiful game, is that anybody can be defeated, anyone. But there's so many teams, like especially in the National League, Pittsburgh being one of them, that are all still in the mix for a wild card spot, right? You don't have a lot of teams that are just awful. I mean, you think of the White Sox, they're terrible this year, right? They're one of the few teams, Oakland, but they're scrappy. They're winning in spite of their management and their ownership. But you don't have a lot of teams that are already just done. You have a lot of teams that still have a chance. So how many people or how many owners and GMs are really going to be sellers? Because everyone's looking for pitching. Atlanta, Houston, Yankees, everyone. They're looking for pitching. Everyone's looking to pick up a bat. Well, guess what? You still have more than half the league that's still in contention for the playoffs as we get towards the end of July. So I'll be interested to see who has the assets and who's willing to give up the assets to be able to make those trade deadline deals to give them a bump there in the second half. I think we're going to see some fascinating races. The Phillies are running away in the East, right? The Dodgers have spent $1 gazillion, as always. But there's some interesting races in those wild cards in the Central divisions as well. It's going to be a fascinating final few months of the season.
I want to remind everybody here at Tremonti's Meat Seafood Baton Rouge, the Wednesday special burger and fries, $6.99, the world famous burger here. You can eat it in here. You can get it to go. Don't want you to forget about that. Of course, Baton Rouge Rougarou will be home Friday night against the Lake Charles Gumbo Gators. Gates open at 6, 7:05 first pitch. They're going to have the Jerry Lane Chevrolet fireworks show. And Lathan the Kid umpire will make an appearance Friday night at Pete Goolsby Field in Baton Rouge. We want you to check it out. Go to brrougarou.com. Also, hit up the Rougarou on social media, Baton Rouge Rougarou. Go to Facebook, X, and Instagram. Keep up with everything they got going on there. They're on the road tonight against Victoria, Texas. They'll play the Lake Charles Gumbo Gators tomorrow night over in Lake Charles. Raymond, before we get out of here, tell everybody they can hear your show.
Once again, RP3 and Mesh, 11 to 1 weekdays on ESPN 103.7 Lafayette, 104.1 Lake Charles. You can also listen on our free mobile app for both Apple and Android devices. And you can follow me on what it used to be called Twitter. Now it's called X at RP3_sports.
There you go. Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. The third or fourth time you've been on Sports Shorts Daily, and I'm sure we'll have you on again. You have a great day.
You too, Tommy.
All right. And don't forget LeBaire Sportsbook and Hotel Casino in Baton Rouge. We'll be there Saturday morning for radio. Come join us. Everybody have a wonderful day.